Saturday Night Live. The other bar was a small country watering hole that was a classic throwback to the 50s. It set back off Highway 87, a fairly smooth, straight piece of two-lane blacktop running in a north-south direction through the center of North Carolina. In years past, before globalization, the bar had served the shift workers from the textile mill a few miles away on the Haw River or the local farmers when winter came and they were no longer in the fields working the crops. This being the Bible Belt, the other bar had been the only beer joint within miles. All the adjoining counties were dry. It even had a drive-in window behind the cinder block structure where in the days of Jim Crow, colored folks used to drive up and buy beer through the window since blacks were not allowed in the white establishments. I rolled off the wet, cold highway and pulled around to the dirt parking lot in the back that was full of motorcycles and pickup trucks. The old country watering hole had become a great biker destination in recent years, and we'd all made frequent runs out to get drunk beside the small creek running behind the joint or inside the square building. I liked this bar almost as much as the Knucklehead Tavern. I pulled my shit down to the creek where there was still some space and circled around, finding a gap between two baggers. I rolled to a stop, put down the kickstand, and cut the juice. I took a deep breath and relaxed for a moment, savoring the wonderful night. The sky was full of stars and the rain was fucking gone. There was a cool wind blowing in from the north. I figured that winter was coming back quick. We still had a few hours before the temps would be in the 30s. Still had time to drink some more brews and socialize with the next. I walked across the crush and run lot, hearing the roar of a hell-raising crowd mixed with the sounds of Hank wailing about all his rowdy friends, and entered the back door. Coming through the door, the first thing I noticed was Billy Clyde Tuggle standing in front of the oak bar that ran the length of the building with his back to his boys, and further down the bar was Fat Charlie, Gypsy Joe, and the rest of my brothers. My face lit up with a big smile until Billy Clyde turned to me and said loud enough for the whole bar to hear him, "What's this shit, Weed? This is how a real man takes care of business." Sitting at a round table in front of Clyde was a pretty blonde woman in her 30s, another middle-aged brunette with huge tits, and two local boys, both young and heavily buffed, obviously in good shape. Billy Clyde reached down and grabbed a handful of the blonde woman's hair and jerked her out of the chair, then came back with a massive right fist, hitting her in the face with all he had. He threw her into the brunette, who fell backwards in her chair into the next table. Both the young bucks jumped up, and Billy Clyde turned over the table and went for the tall blonde, leaning again with his powerful right, which landed square in the center of the poor fellow's nose. He turned to the other dude, a smaller version of the first one he had just nailed, threw a left jab that sent him backwards and into a middle of a pool table. Billy Clyde took the big blonde dude to the floor and began to beat the proverbial shit out of him. I moved back to the doorway as the one-sided ass-whipping progressed. One of Clyde's riding buddies, Fuck It Phil, went for the guy Clyde had just jabbed, and before the fool could get off the pool table, smashed him in the face with a beer bottle, breaking the bottle in the process. Billy Clyde continued to hammer the poor blonde dude on the floor, and the tall, long-haired kid, Clyde's coat carrier, kicked the blonde woman on the floor and next went for the big-titted brunette as she tried to get up. I was pleasantly surprised when Joe reached in and pulled the long-haired kid off the brunette, throwing him backward toward the bar. The kid managed to keep his footing, and then he was squaring off against Joe. The shit was getting thick. I reached back to my pocket again and slipped out my buck knife, opened it in the process, and held it behind my back. Billy Clyde left the blind dude laying unconscious on the bar room floor, stood and faced Joe as Fat Charlie and the rest of our brothers left their bar stools, obviously backing Joe. Clyde's other brothers moved back away from the bar as well. Joe spoke directly to Billy Clyde. "I don't give a shit if you beat the fuck out of those dudes, Billy Clyde, but I can't stand seeing a man hit a woman unless in self-defense." The old hen-tending bar, Miss Marge, screamed at us as she held the phone in her hand. "I just called 911. They're on their way. Oh, you assholes need to get gone now." Billy Clyde just smiled and walked towards Joe. I was ready for things to get real nasty. He stopped just short of my brother and replied, "Used to be one of us, Joe. Guess hanging around with punks like that Weed dude has fucked up your head." Joe kept his cool and stood his ground. His comment was short and to the point. "Yeah, you're right on that one, Clyde. I ain't one of you." Billy Clyde looked around, saw the dude who'd been knocked on the pool room pool table, now lying on the floor with pieces of broken glass all over his split head trying to sit up. Billy Clyde lifted his boot, placed it on the poor fellow's face, and then kicked, sending the man under the pool table. Laughing, the big outlaw turned and walked past me and out the door. The long-haired kid and the rest of the Clyde's crew filed in and followed him out. I closed my blade, slipped it back in my pocket, and let out a sigh. In the parking lot, it was quickly decided it would be our best interest to skedaddle. Billy Clyde and his assholes had already made a nasty exit blasting north towards Graham and I-85. Fortunately, this shovel roared with 2 kicks. We rolled out in a pack heading south towards Pittsburgh and 64. Again, I settled at the rear as we took off one by one, full throttle. I felt so good to have the cold wind in my face as I settled back a few feet off Killabru's rear fender, straight pipes howling, rolling down the moonlit highway like a pack of horny dogs chasing a fat female bitch in heat. I figured we'd finally putt to the Knucklehead Tavern, and we did. I was pumped up after what had just gone down, and if the hate crew were there, I was not alone this time. Downshifting the old shovel and using only the rear brake, I rolled in last in the pack and followed the brothers to park in a row facing the highway in the back lot. There were a few other bikes there and half a dozen pickup trucks and no prospects at the door. It looked like a bit slow for Saturday night. I felt strange walking up the hill and into the side door, going in last after Fat Charlie. This was my first time since the hate crew had fucked me up. The bar had a new jukebox and some George Jones tunes was playing I'd never heard. Weed! At the bar were 5 different women, all different ages, looking and hairstyles. They were all friends and regulars at the Knucklehead, and I knew them well. They were the bar bitches and part of what made this watering hole such a unique place. The woman that had yelled my name was Sadie, a large, heavy blonde who was married to a friend of mine, Junior, an old drinking buddy who farmed tobacco for a living. Sadie tended the bar at an upscale restaurant in downtown Raleigh. She was pure country and good people. She left her stool and came up to me as I passed the pool table. The 2 boys were shooting and stopped and allowed me to pass. She pulled me into her arms and gave me a big tit bear hug, which only large, voluptuous women can do correctly. Hey, girl, I mumbled as I fell in love. How you doing? Where's Junior? Probably got his ass parked on the couch, but I'm doing my thing with the girls. Fuck him. I said, damn, girl, I'm glad I ran into you. That old shithead needs to be fucking me a little more instead of nursing a bottle in front of the TV. She laughed as she said it, and I knew that old Junior and her were still a functioning married couple, accepting the deal as it was. I made the rounds with hellos and hugs at the bar. Carol Ann, Joe's part-time girlfriend, came up and pulled me away from the others as Killer handed me a cold beer. She was a 30-something brunette with a cute face, small in a chest, a perfect bubble butt, and usually a great attitude. Joe is such an asshole. Didn't even say hello to me when he got here, the fucking asshole. Shit, I tried to diffuse her anger. He's got a lot on his plate right now, girl. We just avoided a bad confrontation at the other bar. He had to do a tough stand down. What happened? Now she wanted to know more. I quickly realized I'd fucked up, wanted to get her off the subject of Joe's lack of attention to her, and ended up opening another can of crap. I was starting to feel like a gossip girl. Forget I said anything. He just got a lot of shit buzzing around in his head right now. Well, how you doing after that run-in with a hate crew and Molly splitting on you? I was so glad that she had changed the subject, even if it was not my favorite topic. That was last month, and it was a bad motherfucker. This is a new one. I had a good week. I'll make it. I made the rounds, catching up on what had been happening since I've been on the men. Big Mike introduced me to one of the new bartenders, Jenny. She was a 20-something hottie with short black and blue hair, a nose ring, a low-cut blouse, framing a great set of tits, lots of tattoos, and a big smile. Fat Charlie had described her perfectly. I hung at the bar for several more beers and finally migrated to the back porch to smoke a cigar, watch the Saturday evening traffic fly by, drink my beer, and reflect on the day. What a day! A moment later, Sadie came out the door and slid up to me. Those motherfuckers have been fucking up this bar. The only reason that we came here tonight is they're on a run to Myrtle Beach. They fucked the whole place up. Well, how'd you know that? How'd you know they went to Myrtle Beach? Jenny lets me know everything. That dumbass Redbeard tells her what they're doing. He's taking a shine to her and tells her shit he shouldn't, but she's scared to death of him and those other assholes. Yeah, I didn't get along with them very well when I met them. They're just a bunch of pricks, got a thing for young girls. They bring in those little Hispanic girls that either coke to the gills, stupid drunk, or both. Sounds typical. Yeah, I can't believe how quickly they showed up and just took over. Once again, my talking about the hate crew pissed me off. My mood was fading fast. As she talked about them, I felt my body tighten up, my fist instantly clenched. Joe came out on the porch and Sadie exited back into the bar. As soon as she was out of earshot, I started digging Joe for what caused the shitstorm at the other beer. That was some bad business I walked into with Billy Clyde. What the fuck caused that brawl? Joe looked at me and smiled. Come on, Weed. You know that asshole. He didn't need a reason. He didn't like the way those locals looked or acted or something, they said. But he keeps everybody on their toes and guessing. He's playing a game and only he knows the rules. Yeah, intimidation. The motherfucker gets his power by creating a climate of fear. Fuck the son of a bitch. Joe added with a scowl. I was a hair away from busting a cap in the son of a bitch. He's really savage with his dukes, but I ain't above blowing his nutsack off. I finished the sentence. Glad it didn't come to that. Then we'd have 2 clubs out for us. I got nothing at all against the RA. Billy Clyde ain't exactly my best mate friend, but he's never fucked with us. I just can't stand seeing a man beat a woman. We closed the bar down. I was on the verge of being seriously DWI, and luckily, Fried Phil, a pothead who didn't drink anymore, did a 50-foot burnout in front of the bar. We waited for a minute, checked to see if any law enforcement was going to give chase. Sure enough, a Wake County sheriff blew by, blue lights flashing, pursuit of Phil's hot rod shovel. We rolled out in single file as slowly as possible, heading west again, away from the city lights, blue lights, and towards Chatham County and open country. As soon as we crossed the Chatham County line, we rolled it on. I split from the pack on Farrington Road and headed home, loose as a goose, a shit-eating grin on my face. It'd been a sweet day, except for running into Clyde and his crew. Meeting in fucking Little Mississippi, riding in the sun, raining under the stars, getting drunk, stoned, and riding again. It'd been so good to be back rolling in the wind.